what we have is that little arm there. I'm not sure if it's focusing on it or not, but that thing's got 2 cotter pins in it that are holding it into place, that slide through those 2 holes there. And so when we put it back in, we got to make sure we slide it back over that center piece and then put the cotter pins back in each side. All right, so now we got to see if we can get it out of here. So the one thing is I couldn't get the one loose back there, so I had to take it loose from this side. Let's see. That piece has got to come straight out, but it can't come out until I get this piece right here out of here. Actually, there it goes. So now, let's see how we're going to do this. There we go. All right. So there is our piece. All right, so this is a Parker, and then there's a couple numbers on here that evidently the camera isn't going to focus on. But anyway, it's a Parker 11-644-5, and then it's got another number, C48-5346. I have no, a quick search on the internet has yielded no info, so what I think I'm going to do is pull one of these guys off and see what is in here. Alright, so as far as this goes, there's just an O-ring around this piece that seals it up into the body here. So this may end up being a more serious problem than I was hoping. Looking down in there, it's looking like the seal is actually more a mechanical fit, but we'll see, because something's allowing this to drain down in and go back out these other lines. So now that we know that these guys are not really the issue, we'll switch gears and take this face plate off, or the face off here. Oh, don't know what is going to be in here. Kind of like Christmas. Let us see. We may have to take this cotter pin loose here. And this thing has got some markings on it for where the red goes back into the top here, and then there's a red marking here to line that side up. So it looks like that should come off of there. I see some silicone on it. Alright, so we got a mark here and here, here and there, and then I'm going to draw one off here too, just in case that matters, but I'm sure it doesn't. So now what we got to do is figure out how to get that to come off. Alright, so we used a razor blade to get down in the back there, and now I'm just using something a little bit flat to work this off very gently. Knowing that when we open this it's going to explode into a million pieces. Alright, so far it's going to be a little hard to see. Let me give a light here. So there's another O-ring down in there that we're dealing with. Alright, and now it looks like another ring there. So what I'm seeing here is not giving me much hope that I'm going to be able to fix this, because it looks like maybe the thing needs a little bit more attention. So, and I'm betting I'm betting that these guys are spring loaded. So that guy, it's not a gasket, it's a actual piece of metal there, a seal, but it's free spins. And then I'm betting that these guys right here have some kind of spring tension on them that's holding them in. But the fact of the matter is it's not working, so technically pulling it apart ain't gonna matter much. I'm gonna have to find somebody to rebuild it, I guess. So we have 1, 2, 3, looks like 4, and then we've got one hole. So whichever one I turn it to line the hole up is letting the fuel go into this guy. So technically the seal prop part may be on the body. So, but we're gonna have to figure out how to get this all back together. Alrighty. Alright, let's do this. So this thing has a hole in it that the fuel actually goes through. So that's what's allowing it to go through, and then these guys are just here to seal up the body. These things, they almost feel like plastic, but I'm sure they're made out of something special. But they are a little scratched up. But I'm thinking that these guys, all they're doing is keeping this thing centered. I wouldn't think that they're sealing anything, although they would be lining up with the other fittings to seal them off. We got an O-ring over here, but the O-ring isn't leaking. One of the things that was leaking when we were turning the valve when we had fuel in it is it's leaking out of this shaft right here. So whatever's sealing this up, which is probably another O-ring, there's something here that is and we got a set screw over here, so I bet if I loosen this set screw, this face will come off, and then we'll have another O-ring in here. So these guys are nothing special, they just got a little round piece on the back, so they just fit down in that hole like that. So those are no springs or anything to worry about there, they just fit back into the thing in a roundabout way, quite literally. So they just come out, so we'll go ahead and take those out and get them out of the way. So we have our hole, fuel comes in here and out the center. So whichever one we line this up with ends up letting the fuel come in from whichever tank. So now the question is, what seals this up? And it looks like not a thing. So it looks like as that hole lines up with this other hole, it causes it to open up that particular line. The fuel flows through this line, so you can see inside there it flows through that line and then out this line, which goes to the engine. So the situation right now is that we can put a new O-ring on here, but the O-ring really isn't the problem because it's not leaking out of the body. Like I said, it's leaking out of this shaft, but it's also something's allowing it to leak
from here and spread out through here and go into the other tanks, which is a mystery. So what we'll do, I guess, is I'll go ahead and take this, try to get this off. Let me get my Allen wrenches here and let's see if we can get this face to come off of there. It wasn't very tight. And then this one's got some silicone up in it that we got to get out of here. And it is worth mentioning that neither one of these set screws was very tight, so I'm not totally sure what they're holding on, but it does appear that releasing those has caused it to open up a little bit. Looks like we might have another set screw down there in that shaft. No, looks like maybe. There we go. Alright, so that comes out of there, and that's kind of got some corrosion in it. Alright, so we got a washer that goes in here, and then this piece right here slides back down in there, and then we've got some little grooves in there, so we're going to be lining that back up over here, which lines our hole back up, but that, I don't think that it matters. We've also got ball bearings in each end of this, so those set screws are actually pushing on ball bearings, and you can almost see where those ball bearings have been. So I think what happens here is this thing locks to that shaft. The ball bearings run around this edge to keep this thing smooth, so they're not supposed to be tight, they're just holding the ball bearing to keep this thing having detents. So the ball bearings actually line up with these grooves to give it a snap when it locks into place at each location. So that makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all this is doing is actually locking things in. So I need to make sure I don't lose those ball bearings. Alright, and then this, so there's our washer. Put the washer with that. Alright, so then we're going to slide that out. Alright, so now what we have, here's the piece with our O-ring, so we'll take that O-ring out. Alright, so we got a spring. Alright, so inside of each one of these guys, I need to just take it out so I can clean all this up. So let me put that down for a second. So inside of there, we have a set screw cap that goes on the end of the spring, and then we got a ball bearing that actually pushes out on the shaft, which is what makes it lock into its different detents. So that is all we got going on right there. So I'm going to go ahead and set those guys over here, and I think that ball bearing is wanting to fall out of there, so we'll get it out, get that spring out of there, and that has the little cap thing actually goes into the bottom. It's what pushes on the ball bearing, not the other way around. So the cap piece is down here on the bottom. So I gotta remember that. And just to make sure I haven't taken either one of these out, so let me take this all the way out. And it just has its own piece, so it doesn't need a cap up here on the top. So the set screws go in the top, then the spring, then the little cap that pushes up against the ball bearing, and then the ball bearing. And then those are going to push into the other piece. Alright, so this piece we just need to clean up, but it's got an O-ring around here that's sealing it up, and like I said, that O-ring is still working. Alright, so now this piece has this washer on here that's not, it's made out of graphite or something. I mean, I don't know what this thing's made out of, but it does have some pretty good sized grooves in it right there. And those grooves have been created, I guess, running around these edges. So that seals up that side of it. I almost wonder if we could flip this thing over and let it run grooves on the other side, because the fuel is mainly over here on this side. So we could probably reuse this piece and just turn it around and let it face the opposite side. So we'll have to look into that. And then on this shaft, we just have two O-rings that are pressed on here, which is kind of odd, but that's what's holding those on. So we can put new O-rings on here, flip that washer around, clean everything up. Looking at inside the housing, they're really, I mean, it's all pretty mechanical. There's not a lot of complexity here. We got some grooves on this outside edge, but again, we weren't leaking over here. What's happening is this thing is leaking internally, which is a little baffling. So I don't see the point in taking these guys off, other than if they were leaking, to put new O-rings in them, but they're not leaking, so I'll put that other one in, put new O-rings on it. And again, this piece is pretty simple. It wasn't leaking either, so I might just stick some fuel lube on here and put it back together. But there's nothing, so there's nothing leaking here. So the thought is that when you turn that thing around and select whichever one, it happened to be the front left, or the front left tank, when you would select it, fuel would run in and run out this line here. And from what we could see is happening, this shaft was leaking, which means these O-rings are letting fuel come through. And again, I don't know why there's two O-rings on there, but that was leaking, and then the fuel was somehow getting down here in this cavity and running into the other tanks, the two back tanks. So I mean, the only thing that I see that could cause that is that when this piece is in there, that it's just got too much play and it's not sealing off that hole. So where it ought to be sealing off, it's got too much play in it and is allowing fuel to get past the thing, because it definitely seems to have some play in that shaft there. So I don't know. And you also have, these little pieces here that are a little bit worn, but they're closing off each one of the other. So if I opened up this one, these guys are closing off the other holes. So it opens up the one and then closes off the other 4. Or the other 3. I don't know. I don't see too much other than this thing does have quite a bit of play in it. And that most definitely would cause it to leak. But that would be, I'm gonna have to see if I can find some parts for it before I put it back together. But right now, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna have to do some searching on the part and see if I can find some pieces, or see if I can find somebody that actually rebuilds this thing and send it to them and let them rebuild it. But right now, I gotta see if I can find some parts for it.